Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Everything But the Guy podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Whitman. We are interviewing successful women about their love life. And today we have an incredible woman on the show. Welcome to the Everything But the Guy podcast, Shana Meyerson.
Hey Rebecca, I'm so happy to be here.
It's so great to have you on the show. I know you are a world-renowned yoga instructor, and you also are one of the first yoga instructors to teach kids. And I want to talk to you about love and relationships, and we'll get into handstands and self-empowerment at the end.
Sure.
But first, tell me a little bit about your experience of dating and relationships in Los Angeles, where we both live.
Los Angeles, where you turn invisible after 30.
Right.
Um, I mean, it's so funny. I'll be 53 next month. So I'm up there. And
You're great, though.
I, huh?
You look amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yoga is working for you.
It is pretty amazing, yoga is. Um, but it's pretty funny. I was on online dating before Match, before anything, when it was just like five people on online dating. Like I've been on that long. And I could tell you that the day I turned 30, it was like crickets. Like before that, it was like so many emails. I literally couldn't even keep up with them from all like the best guys in LA. But it's been a bit of a challenge. I also had, when I turned 30, really like right when I had turned 30, I started my yoga business, which became very big, very, very fast. And I say I had like this super incestuous relationship with my business because it was both my baby and my husband. Like I was married to it and I had to nurture it. And for quite a few years, I really did neglect my love life because I was so in love with my work.
And did you end up having kids?
I did not. So I honestly, anybody who knows me knows like I love children more than anyone on earth loves children. Like I really do. I woke up one day around 45 years old and I'm like, oh, I better stop dating my work and start dating like a man because there's not a lot of time left. And there wasn't. So I had to reconcile that quite honestly with God that because there's so many people who don't want kids, who have kids, and I just never really got that gift. But I realized after a while of meditating on it that God never gave me children so that I could love other people's children as much as I would my own. Because I just love everyone's children.
That is so much like me because I have been working at a children's acting school
Oh,
as a director of admissions, and I don't have kids of my own, but I've been, teaching kids at the acting school. So we both have that in common. So let's talk about, okay, you felt after 30 that you were completely aged out of the LA dating scene. And what happened after that? Did you continue to go on internet dates? Did you have any long-term relationships that were really, on the path to marriage? Like tell me a little bit more about what happened after age 30.
yeah. Yes, I did have relationships with people that were on the path to marriage. I am a pretty selective person. I'll say that's a nice way of saying it. And as much as I've always wanted to get married, I just wanted to really get married to the right person. And though the men who came in my life and stuck around for a while were, in retrospect, really terrific, high quality men. Um, I also knew that we weren't jibing on the soul level that I thought was going to last forever. Obviously, it didn't because we're not together anymore.
Right.
And so I never, though the conversation came up with a number of men, it just never really seem to be the right guy.
Do you believe in soulmates?
I do believe in soulmates, but I have a different concept of soulmates than I think most people do. I think a soulmate is somebody who follows you from lifetime to lifetime. I do believe in a soul and reincarnation. And I believe, for example, my grandfather and one of my nephews are soulmates of mine. Um, Even though I love all five of my nieces and nephews equally, I'm not just saying that like because it's the PC thing. I really do, but there's one in particular that I feel particularly connected to. And so um I don't believe I've found my love life soulmate, but I don't think we all do in a lifetime. Or it could be that my love life soulmate came back as my mother. Like you just don't know how souls cycle.
Right,
Soul
right.
cycle.
Not Soul Cycle, the film studio. How Soul Cycle. That's probably how they thought of it. Um, so what relationship really you had your heart set on this person leading toward marriage and then it just didn't go that way. Maybe your great love or maybe your big heartbreak. Tell me about the dynamics of that relationship. Like who, you don't have to say his name, but how long did it last and what was the turning point where you realized it wasn't going to be the one?
Well, this is sort of embarrassing because I'm 53. I would say that like the lovest love of my life was my high school and college boyfriend. And after college, like we dated
That's
for,
not embarrassing. That's totally
well,
normal.
it's like like half a life ago, more than half a life ago.
At least you had a great love. Some people don't
Yeah,
even get one. So that's amazing.
sure. Sure. So let's see, we dated in high school through college and a few years after college. And you know that was definitely on me. I definitely was the one who destroyed something really good. It's funny. I think that my life has been very much like a path of ascension, and I started out at like the lowest place on earth, which is to say Hollywood in the film industry,
What
where
did you do in Hollywood?
script development. But I started off at ICM, at talent agency, and
Oh, you probably know my husband. Do you know Ben Press? He was at ICM like he's a few years older than you, but
yeah, yeah, I know the name. Honestly, this was 1993 and 4 that I was.
that's when he was
No,
there.
I know the name, but I
That
remember
is
no one
so
except
funny.
like, yeah. Was he in motion picture or TV?
I don't know. He started in the mailroom and then he ended up on Ed Lamato's desk.
Ah, okay, cool. It was a great desk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just when it comes to like morals and ideals, the higher you go in Hollywood, the closer you get to the bottom of the barrel. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And because I worked for a very, very, very high powered agent, I got a lot of attention from the men's, and I thought they were interested in me. It was only after I left Hollywood that I realized they were interested in just getting to him. And so I think I know I really discounted my boyfriend, who was such a wonderful, loyal, faithful, good human. And I, at the time, just wasn't like, it's not like I cheated on him. I didn't. I've never cheated on anyone in my life and never, ever would. But emotionally, like I detached because I was so convinced as a stupid, 20-ish year old that I was so much better than he was. Cause look at me, all these famous people want to know me. And, so God has a path laid out for all of us. And yoga, like really, I didn't go straight from Hollywood to yoga, but yoga has really given me a lot of perspective on like who I was. And I really can detach from that. That's not who I am on any level. And I think this is a challenge that a lot of people have, is not being able to say like, okay, I made mistakes in the past, but that's not my present.
Yes, that's not who you are. and we're not our actions. Our soul is untouchable, I feel like, and our soul is who our soul is, and our personality can do some crazy things, but we're not our mistakes either.
Sure. Yeah.
So
So,
how did you discover yoga and how did it like turn your life around and get you out of Hollywood?
well, again, it wasn't after Hollywood. So after Hollywood, I actually worked for Microsoft, and then I worked in .com for a while. And so yoga, I mean, I found it completely by accident, and I couldn't say that more literally. I was walking around my apartment and I ran into a piece of furniture and broke my toe. It was an accident. And I was such the consummate athlete my whole life. And all of a sudden, I couldn't put my foot in a shoe. And so when I was finally able to like walk but not run, for example, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll try this stupid yoga thing. And I did, and it stuck.
And what was on the first time you did it? Was it a class? Was it a video? Like, who was the instructor? How did you know this was like going to be your spiritual path?
My very first class was with Brian Cast here in Santa Monica, and it spoke to me on such a visceral level that I knew instantly it was everything that I needed in my entire life, and where had it been for 30 years. I, at the time, had a great job. I was also getting my MBA here at UCLA at the same time. And to say that I was on a different path than teaching yoga would be like the understatement of the year. But within months, I left my job, and much longer story, left my MBA program as well to become a yoga teacher.
And what would you tell someone? This is a show for single women who are successful. They just don't have the guy. What would you tell a woman who is not into yoga? Like maybe she just thinks it's too airy fairy, or she just is into like weightlifting or something. Like what dimension can yoga bring to her life?
Sure. I mean, truly, I mean, yes, I drank the Kool-Aid, but there is yoga for everyone, meaning there is the airy fairy. I think you could tell just by talking to me, that's not my practice. I do believe deeply, deeply in the spiritual aspects, but there are yoga classes that are, just sort of stretchy lying around classes, and it goes all the way through like super crazy athletic classes, which is what I teach, a lot of handstands, arm balances. I could tell you that I for sure was in sitting around on the floor and humming, not my thing. That's what I envisioned. But I can honestly tell you that most seasoned athletes, and I've worked with football combines, I've worked with professional athletes, I've worked with all sorts, cannot make it through a normal class with me until they build up to it. I mean,
Wow.
there's nothing easy about yoga if you're willing to push your edges.
I love
And you
it. I
don't have
like,
to push your edges either. It's really a
yeah. I mean, I like the classes that are yin yoga because I
yeah.
do a lot of tennis and hit training and I feel like I'm just constly tensing my muscles. I like for them to stretch and I also I like to be in my parasympathetic nervous system, right? Because I'm like too intense sometimes. But Kundalini, I was like, are you kidding? Like I couldn't get into it. It was way too ethereal for me. I'm like chanting in Sanskrit and like doing crazy things with my hands and wrists. Like I couldn't relate to that. But
I
people love
I
it.
agree with you. I tried I especially when I was learning, it was really important that I tried it all and
Yeah,
gave all of them multiple tries, because a lot of it also comes down to the instructor, not just the content. Um, but I have to agree with you. Kundalini is definitely not my thing either.
yeah. So we're gonna get to handstands at the end. We have something really exciting about that. But let's go back to your love life. I really like on your interview form, you talked about the masculine and the feminine energy. Have you studied with Dr. Pat Allen or taken any of her seminars? I know she's a big LA icon.
Yeah, I don't know if she still does. I'm over at the theater on Pico.
No, she's retired.
Okay. I have been there twice, but this was probably like turn of the century. It was a long time ago. So I don't like remember per se like her
Her
shtick.
stuff. So you were
Yeah.
mentioning in your intake form about the feminine and the
Yeah.
masculine energy. Why don't you explain that? What did you mean by you want to be treated in a certain way and the
Yeah.
guys are not enough in their masculine energy? Why don't we talk about that for the audience?
Yeah. And I think that yes, feminine and masculine, and keeping in mind that doesn't mean like man and woman. We all have
Right.
feminine and masculine energies, and I think that some people don't always understand that. I mean, I do happen to prefer a man who's very masculine, but that's just my personal preference. For me, really, the bigger thing is just the chauvinism versus the chivalry.
That is a tweetable. If you're watching this, what is the difference, Shauna, in your opinion, of chauvinism versus chivalry? That is a really cool distinction you just made.
Well, I mean, chivalry is a man who treats a woman like a princess, and a chauvinist is a man who thinks he's the prince.
Ooh, yes, yes. And that actually is when they think they're the prize and the prince, they're actually in their feminine energy. So, what do you do? Like,
Well,
what do you do in a city like LA where I feel it's reversed? I feel like the women are in their masculine, they're going for their jobs and their big dreams. And the men are like, getting Botox and laser facials and, getting everything waxed. So it's like the roles are so reversed. So how do you handle that? How do you, as a feminine woman who also kicks ass and, if you don't know her, look her up on Instagram. She's a world famous yoga instructor to the stars. How do you switch over from being this superstar yoga teacher to being in your feminine and being more passive? Like,
yeah, it's hard because I need a man I don't want to make this like a S&M thing or anything, but I do need a man who
no.
knows how to like be more masculine than I am. And I don't consider myself to be a majorly masculine woman, but I'm also not like super dainty either, right? I'm like I think I'm a fairly well balanced human. Honestly, I think that the problem, and I know this is probably not going to be popular, is that feminism fought so hard for equal rights, and I 100% believe in equal rights, but
Yeah.
in the process of losing gender roles, men have forgotten how to cherish a woman, even older men. I'm 53. I'm talking about men in their late 50s, 60s who should know better. Who still I was dating a guy for a little while who I wanted to like I just couldn't. I just couldn't. We went out probably 10 times and he called me once ever, even though I told him like it's really important to me, communication's important, it's really important that
Wait,
you
then
call.
how did he arrange 10 dates if he never called you via text?
And it's just
Um,
like I'm like text is great for platitudes, but
right.
you need to be willing to connect. You need to care. You need to show me that you're taking a little time, a little bit of effort. Men who it's a first date and they want to meet you halfway, or why don't you come to me? Or, and it's like, what happened to the rules? There's rules. I want to be treated like a lady. I really do. And I think that I know that when I'm with a man who's more masculine, I become more feminine.
Yes, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. So, what are you going to do? Are you going to look older, younger? Are you going to stay single? Do you care? Like what is your solution to all this stuff?
Boy, I wish I had the solution. I really sort of at this point put it in the hands of God. Like I am very talky. When I'm in public, like I talk to people, I go to a lot of events, I'm always trying to meet people. So I'm 100% open to anything, but I'm also a very unique person, and I don't fit most people's mold, I think, of what they're looking
That's
for.
a good thing.
It
When
is.
when God made you, he broke the mold. I like that saying. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like everyone else. And when you meet your right person, they're gonna like that you're unique. I really
Sure.
believe what Rumi says, what you seek is seeking you.
Yeah. I
And
just don't
53 is not old, by the
know.
way. Stop saying that. I don't think that's old at all. If we live to
Right.
100,
Oh,
we're
sure.
barely at the halfway point.
Oh, I just mean it's old compared to when I was at ICM and with my boyfriend when I was
Right.
22. You know what I
But
mean?
you look great, and I'm sure you're in like sick shape because you're, high level yogi. So I mean, look at Sting. He's a yogi, and I just saw him in concert at the Hollywood Bowl, and he was like beyond ripped and hot. And I don't even know how old. He's probably 70 now.
Yeah. Let me be honest. I don't like to me, like I am age defying. I say,
Yeah.
listen, if I really thought that I was old, I wouldn't just throw it out there.
Yeah, you're not. You're beautiful.
It's funny that like to me, like doing crazy acrobatics that like most 12-year-olds can't do, like it's crazy to me. Like when I say 53, it's funny. It's not like an incrimination. There are things I can
Right.
control in life and things I can't. I don't know many women who like you ask them how old they are, they're like, I don't even say 50. I'm like, I'll be 53 in a few weeks.
Well,
Like,
you are crushing it.
yeah.
So what what I'm hearing you say is you're just gonna surrender your love life to God, which is awesome, and just be open-minded and open-hearted that your masculine man that cherishes your feelings is gonna find you.
Yeah.
And I believe he will. And in the
Feel free to
meantime,
send him my way. I mean, I live just a few miles from you, so
I know. We have to meet for coffee. We live so close, or tea.
yeah, I'll send you my
Um,
relationship CV and you could work your back.
yeah, I do. I mean, my husband and I meet a lot of people, and I definitely will keep you on the top of my mind to fix up with people. We do meet a lot of people. So let's talk about women's empowerment because I also really like what you said in your forum. Like, we get to have a guy, and it definitely makes life amazing, but we don't have to have a guy to have this beautiful, amazing life. So what are your views on that as far as like female empowerment?
Yeah, I mean, I think about my parents or certainly the generations before them, where if you weren't married by the time you were, 25, there was something wrong with you. And it was just a given. Everybody just had like a mate. And I look at a lot of women of those generations, and it's funny, not in my family. Even my grandparents, my grandmas went to college and grad school. So like
That's incredible.
I know, I come from a long line of empowered women.
You
Uh,
do? Are you from LA? Is your family all from LA?
we're from New York, but I did grow up here in Irvine.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your grandma went to college,
Yeah,
or
both of them
that's
did.
that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I do like in general, I think that generation like literally handed themselves over, right, to their husband. And
Yes.
they were what their husband defined them as.
Yes.
And I think that the only way that we can like own our awesome in this life is and I actually believe that my karma in this life, the lesson that I need to learn is to not seek the validation of others. And when we learn to validate ourselves, then you're never alone when you realize you're complete. I know some
Yes.
people who are so I could call it perfect marriages or whatever because they're so happy, but they're also they've lost themselves so much in the relationship. Like they won't go out to dinner without their other mate, or they won't go on vacation for a
Yeah,
weekend
they're
without their,
codependent.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're not interdependent, where
Yeah.
they each have their own fully actualized life and then they connect. They're codependent, which that's not healthy either.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's wonderful to have a partner. I'm not going to lie. All things being equal, would I love to have a man like by my side? 100%. But he, I would never like be in a relationship where we lose ourselves in each other. I'd rather find myself with somebody else than lose myself with them.
And you have walked away, if I may share, from a toxic relationship. So I think it's much better to be alone than in bad company and with somebody who is unkind. And if you're listening to this and you're in a toxic relationship, there is so much like love and joy and happiness for you on the other side of it. I really believe that it's better to be alone than in bad company.
100%. And for what it's worth, because I know we were going to talk about my handstand and
Yeah,
self-empowerment program,
sure.
it's not a separate issue.
Yeah.
So when a number of years ago, I know this sounds like the opposite of a powerful woman. I don't know how I found myself in a deeply abusive relationship, mentally and emotionally. Quite honestly, I could have kicked his ass. So it wasn't physically.
Okay, well that's good.
I'm just joking. I would
I
never, but
know. I
like,
know, I'm
but
kidding.
it was relentless. And I think
Yeah.
that myself included, before this happened to me, like would discount the concept of emotional and mental abuse because it's so intangible. It's like,
Hmm.
grow some skin. Like,
Yeah.
but when you're talking about somebody who spends every waking minute screaming at you and trying to belittle you and trying to hurt you and do anything they can to like suppress you and the anger and the breaking things and the whole thing, all of a sudden you understand um that abuse does not have to be physical to be life altering. So I I mean, I lost my soul. There's no other word for it. I always think about the Grinch before the Grinch who stole Christmas when his heart got smaller and smaller, that cartoon part where like you see it, like that's literally what it felt like. I mean, I'm not somebody who would ever do anything like kill myself, but I felt like I was dying from the inside. There's no other word. And
I'm so sorry you had to go through that pain.
But you know what? I'm not sorry. I'm not
Yeah.
sorry because what happened was by the time I finally was able to leave, because there's a lot of, Stockholm syndrome or trauma bonding and stuff that makes it hard to leave. But when I did finally leave, I went on a 24/7 path of healing. When I say 24/7, that means like playing YouTube videos while I slept. I
Wow.
mean
You were
20.
determined to heal. I love it.
Yeah. And what's amazing is that I came out of this process. It took like a year better than I was before I met him. Like one day I literally woke up, like looked in the mirror. I was able to smile and thank God and say, this is why. It took a year after the relationship to understand where that blessing was. And, it's so almost condescending when people try to say these things to you, like you're going to learn so much or whatever. And you're just like, you think you're going to die. But, because I wound up in a better place than I ever was, even before I met him. I wouldn't say that I was ever a complacent person, but I was certainly in such a good space when I met him that I did not need to put in the 24/7 work on myself that wound up coming. And so that was where the handstand breakthrough revolution evolution came from, was taking like all I learned about self-empowerment and combining it with my personal power move, which is handstands, and out came this beautiful amalgamation.
So let's talk about that. This is a perfect segue to the last point that I want to make. What do handstands and self-empowerment have to do with each other? I
Sure.
personally, I've never done a handstand. Like I'm scared to
Oh,
go upside down, even though I'm super athletic and strong and I play tennis and lift weights. I personally have like a thing about going upside down. I'm like when they do that in yoga class, I just like do child's pose or whatever. So
okay.
tell me, and the women who are listening who have never done a handstand, what do they have to do with self-empowerment? Why should we do it?
Yeah, so first of all, in a sentence, you actually answered it in the question.
Tell me.
The fact that you're paralyzed by fear means that in order to do a handstand, you need to move past the fear.
Yes.
And it's simultaneously um brave and scary and invigorating and enthralling and all the things. Think about Tony Robbins says fire walking, right?
Yes.
And it's like, why? Like, it's not a practical skill. I don't
No,
need,
it's
like,
not.
unless I lived really close to a volcano and I didn't own shoes, like, firewalking is not like a life skill. But honestly, the empowerment process is exactly the same. It's about mind over matter, patience, perseverance. It's about your mind making order out of chaos, becoming non-reactivity, owning your awesome, being fearless, moving past like the things that your self-limiting beliefs, owning your awesome, finding your power. And then once you get there, because I also had to get there. So I know what it's like to get there. It's such a thrill.
So what is the first step to someone doing a handstand? I know we're going to talk about your course, but if somebody was just listening and they're
Yeah.
like, what should I do? Like how would I even like go upside down? Should they put their
Yeah.
feet up on the wall? Like what
I'll
would
tell
you
you what, it's funny because my YouTube is full of like really, really intense instruction, but my most popular video of all time is me teaching my mom how to walk up the wall when she was 69 years old. She's now 80. The video is literally called Handstands for Beginners Who Are Afraid of Handstands. Um,
Oh, I love
or
it. I
something
have to
very,
check
very
that
similar
out.
to that. And it's a great video. Everybody falls in love with my mom. We shot this so many years ago. And even to this day, everywhere I go on earth, everyone's like, how's your mom? I love your mom. Like, I'm like, I'll tell her.
How
And
many people have seen the video?
right now, I think it's about 800,000.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to link that. Send me a link to that in the episode
Yeah.
so we can show that. And
And honestly, anybody could do it. My mom had not done a handstand since she was a little girl. And it's not like she was a gymnast or anything, but every little girl has done a handstand. Every little boy has at some point. She was scared to death. She had no prep. She literally came over for my birthday and I'm like, we're gonna shoot a video. She's like, what? I'm like, we're gonna do some handstands today. And there was no scripting. It was 100% just my mom being my mom. And so Rebecca, I challenge you to do that video and to get back to me on it because I think you're gonna like it.
well, send me the link so I can watch it and do it myself. And also maybe I'll videotape it for you.
Yes,
So
I'll share
awesome.
it on my Facebook and on my YouTube community. That'd be amazing.
Awesome. And then tell us about your course coming up, your Handstand Breakthrough Revolution, and what that will do for people who take that course.
Sure. It's an evergreen course, so anybody can sign up literally at any time. And it is an 8-week course that takes you from beginning all the way to balancing in the middle of the room. It is deeply intertwined with mindset work. And so you can't really separate the self empowerment from the handstands. It's very much like handstands, self empowerment, right? Because everybody's like, well, how do I know which section to watch? I'm like, you got to watch it all. Because I think that in order to accomplish any huge goals in life, you got to have the mindset piece.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mindset's crucial.
Yeah. So basically, it's 8 weeks of 15 hours of training that gets delivered. Each week, you get another section and you get drills and exactly like what you need to do that week and supporting videos to help you with particular skills and time with me one-on-one in a Facebook group where people can post videos and I'll analyze the videos and give feedback that way. So and it's also that you get to stay in the program until you hit your goal, which means, a lot of one-on-one time with me if you want it.
Until you can do a handstand, you'll work with that person,
That's
even beyond the 8 weeks.
way beyond the 8 weeks. I have some people, like, honestly, even though it's 8 weeks of instruction, I always tell people don't move on to the next week until you master the skills of this week. So I have some women who have gotten 30, 45 seconds, a minute or more in the middle of the room by the end of 8 weeks. And I have some people who, really, really, really take their time and take a lot of months because that's the pace that they're at. And, it's not a top priority for everybody. It takes work. I'm not going to lie. It's not like I'm like, here, take this pill and you'll be handstanding in the middle of the room. But people who put in the work, the faster it happens, the more you put in.
No, I was thinking of myself as a little kid. I used to love to do handstands in the pool.
Right.
Why am I so scared to do them outside of the pool? As an adult, it was like a thrill and a half to do them in the pool.
It's a little bit of a different dynamic. So you won't hurt yourself when you fall in the pool.
That
But
is
to be honest, my program really does go through like how to get past the fear and how to make sure you're always safe. Because I don't want anybody falling and hurting themselves any more than anybody wants to fall and hurt themselves.
yes. Well, thank you so much. And how can people stay in touch with you other than the link I'm going to share for the course?
Yeah, quite honestly, because I have so many social links, if you just go to yogathletica.com, and I'm sure it will be spelled out, but there's just one A in the middle. I know a lot of people get confused by that. So it's YOGATHLETICA.com. All my social links are there, my channels, my handstand program. It's all there. So it's one-stop shop.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being my guest on the Everything But the Guy podcast. Everyone, this is Rebecca Whitman. I am interviewing successful single women, and we're learning all about not only their love life, but their awesome, successful businesses. So stay tuned for another fantastic guest, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And thank you so much, Shauna, for being on the show.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure.